Hey CMA buddies, let's today start with 10.4. We have already covered from 10.1 to 10.3. 10.4 is one of the most important chapters in this entire series. So because it covers a lot of points and it's very likely that the questions may come from this, right? So let's start it right away. Let's start with dashboards, right? Now what is this topic all about? It's all about dashboards, graphs, diagrams, tables, report design, right? Let's start with dashboard first. What do you mean by a dashboard? Dashboard simply means way of displaying various types of visual data in one place, right? So dashboard is what? It's a way of displaying various types of visual data. Please remember, it's basically a way of showcasing visual data in one place. Simple way is that if you open a window screen, what you get in the front, or if you open a website, what you get in the front is called as a dashboard, as simple as that. So it's basically a way of displaying various types of visual data in one place, right? Now how a dashboard should be? First of all, it should be very interactive, right? The people who are accessing it should be able to take all the vital information from it, whatever they need it, and it should be easily accessible, right? Interactive as in whatever you want to showcase is being understood by the audience. So that's what is interactive means. So it should be interactive. It should enable to manage important metrics, right? All the important data that it's trying to convey, one should be able to understand by looking at the dashboard, where across numerous financial channels, visual data points and generate reports, right? So what basically it can do, if it is interactive, it does means that you should have an access to various numerous financial channels. You should be able to visualize all the data points, and basically you should be able to generate the reports. Fine. For whom? For the customers to summarize the results, right? So this is what a good dashboard, how it should be. First of all, it should be interactive. It should be enabled to manage important metrics and across numerous financial channels, visual data points, and it should be able to generate reports. For whom? For customers to summarize the results, right? Now interactive data dashboard helps the audience to view performance of the company at a glance. So simply at looking at the dashboard itself, you should be able to comprehend what exactly the data is trying to convey, right? Helps in knowing what company is doing, right? And also boost client relationships and provide adequate data, which helps in guiding decision making. So what is the purpose of having a good dashboard? Basically, it helps you to know what the company is into, what it is exactly doing. It also helps to boost or to improve the client relationship, yeah, right? Companies and the client relationship, and it should provide adequate data for what, which can help you in decision making. So that's the key work or the core idea of having a good dashboard, right? A helpful dashboard must automatically update to reflect the present conditions of the activities or affairs. So whatever data is happening, or whatever data you're getting simultaneously or in the real time, what we say, if that data is being automatically updated, that's something a good helpful dashboard should be able to do, right? So what all it should update? All the current activities and the affairs, so that the person who is accessing it or the audience is able to comprehend and understand for the various purposes he's actually accessing the dashboard for, right? I'll repeat it once again. What exactly a dashboard? Dashboard is nothing but its way of displaying various type of visual data in one place. Please remember, it's only a visual data, right? How it should be? It should be interactive. It should be able to manage important metrics across numerous financial channels, visualize data points. First of all, it should be across various numerous financial channels. It should be able to visualize data points, and it should be able to generate the reports, right? For whom? For the customers to summarize the results. Interactive data dashboard helps the audience to view performance of the company at a glance. So just by looking at it, you should be able to analyze the performance of the company, right? At least it should lay that platform for you. It should help in knowing what company is exactly doing, and it also helps to boost client company relationship, and it provides adequate data for what? For making decisions. And a helpful dashboard must automatically update to reflect the present conditions of the activities or the affairs, right? So that's what is dashboard all about. This is what a good dashboard would actually look like. There would be company data. If you just look at it, this one of the format, this is the dashboard. It will show you some kind of figures, for example, this is in the form of a line graph. There is a pie chart over here. There are various histograms over there. So this is what a good ideal dashboard should actually look like. Fine. Okay, now let's move on to the next part. Next part talks about the graphs, diagram and the charts, right? Very easy, you can actually correlate, just that we have to elaborate it a bit, and we will understand that how these things play a very important role in what? In basically data presentation and visualization techniques, right? Let's start with this. Few important and widely used graphs are as mentioned below, right? So first of all, we are talking about the graphs. So what kind of graphs? First one is the bar chart. Okay, what all bar chart can be actually used for? It can be used for comparing data across categories. So when you're comparing data across different categories, right, in that case bar chart can be a very helpful tool, right? Then it can help you to know for highlighting discrepancies, any differences that is there. That discrepancies can be recognized through bar chart. For example, if you're comparing the data between two different years, say 2000 and 2002, you can actually figure out what has been the difference between the both, right, in terms of growth or revenue or whatever you are trying to make the differentiation between. It should be able to highlight the discrepancies, right? Okay, then it should also help you to demonstrate trends and the outliers. Basically, you can know what are the trends in the market which are going, so that a bar chart can actually showcase that, or it can even tell you, it can also demonstrate outliers. Okay, what do you mean by outlier? Outlier I've already explained in the last chapter. Just for your convenience, I'll just explain that once again. Outlier simply means a single data point that goes outside average value of group of statistics. Okay, I guess this language seems to be a bit complicated. I'll try to explain with an example. Now, for example, there is a group of say 5 students, fine, and these students have scored some marks. Say they have scored a marks in the range of 9, 8, 9, 7 and 2, say out of 10, right? Now you can see here there is a consistency. On an average they have scored in the range of 9, 8, 9 and 7. So though they are more or less very near to each other. So it's basically an average score. This 2 is something which is out of the box. So this student hasn't performed well. So this becomes an outlier, as simple as that. So it says single data point that goes outside average value of group of statistics. So that this has gone beyond the average value of the group of statistics. Hence this 2 becomes an outlier. Right? So that's what a bar chart can actually do. It can demonstrate the trends and the outliers. Fine. Finally, it can illustrate historical highs and lows. Right? So bar chart can tell you over a period of time what are the, for example, if you are comparing a stock price, say in 2002 there was a stock price of say 100, in 2003 it was say 10. So you can see the difference. It can illustrate the historical highs and lows that the stock has been able to perform in terms of its price, right? So that's what a bar chart can do, right? So what is basically bar chart used for? It can help you to compare data across categories, right? So different categories if are there, you would be able to compare the data. Now for example, for the first point, say Maruti is producing so many cars, right? Say it's producing Maruti Baleno, right? Then it is producing Swift, then what else? It has other, like it has also Brezza. So if you have to compare the data across the various categories, in that case bar chart can actually help you. So you can see if you are comparing the revenues, what Brezza has done as compared to Baleno, as compared to Swift, right? So this is what a bar chart can actually be very handy for. Hence bar chart can be used for comparing data across various categories. It can help you highlight the discrepancies. It can demonstrate trends and the outliers, and it can illustrate historical highs and lows. So that's what a bar chart can actually help you with, right? Useful when data is divided into distinct categories, right? With this we have already done. So if there are if the data is divided into distinct categories or different categories, in that case bar chart can be very happy, can be very handy, I'm sorry, right? For example, number of cars produced by a company in a year, that's what we spoke about, right? Now you can see there is a bar chart again. This shows that a dual bar chart to show the eye color of year 7 and year 8 student, right? This is just for an illustrative purpose. Now for example, the eye color can be green, blue or brown. right? And this depends on the age of the or this depends on the frequency, right? So this is year 7 student, and this is year 8 student. So you can see the difference. So this can help you for comparing the data across various categories. So that's what the bar chart can actually do for you, right? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Next one talks about the line chart or the line graph, right? Please don't confuse. If it says line chart or line graph, it's one and the same. So chart or graph literally means the same, right? Okay, now what does a line chart or a line graph do? It joins various data points, displaying them as a continuous progression, right? So you can see there is a continuity in this. There won't be any break in it. If there is a continuity and it's in the form of a line, not very consistent or stable, but not linear exactly, but if it is just moving, it's like an ECG, what we see as, right? So if it is in a continuous progression, in that case it can be called as a line chart or a line graph, right? What purpose does it serve? It helps to observe trends in data, right? It's same as what we did in bar chart. That also helps you to demonstrate the trends. Same thing can be done by line chart or line graph also, often over time, right? So if you have to compare over a period of time, in that case line chart can be a very helpful tool, right? For example, if you have to check a stock price movement over a period of time, take any stock price, say HUL, that is Hindustan Unilever. If you have to see what has been the performance of Hindustan Unilever stock price over a period of time, you can see the stock price, started over here, then it kept on moving, then it kept on moving like this. As and when it progressed, it went high, then again it went low. So that's how the stock price of the HUL moved. So this can be clearly indicated, or this can be clearly explained with the help of a line chart or a graph chart, right? Now this represent changes in one value relative to the another, right? So this is all relative in nature. What you saw in the price you saw 5 years before won't be the same this year, right? So this comparison that you can see, that you can figure out with the help of a line chart or a line graph, right? Okay, then we move on to the third one. The third one is what? The third one talks about the pie chart. Pie chart, also called as a circular chart, right? This is what a pie chart looks like. I guess everyone knows that. If, for example, this is total 100% thing, in that case it would be bifurcated into different percentages. For example, this pie chart talks about pie chart for category of people investing in share market. So there are different categories of people who invest in share market. For example, there are healthcare professionals, consultants, entrepreneurs, others. So it will tell you that what percentage of people invest in the share market, right? For example, if you take healthcare professionals, they are investing, so number of healthcares who are investing in stock markets is 28.8%. right? Now please remember, the slices are actually called as wedges. Lemons, lemons, if we cut, you get small pieces, those are called as wedges. So in pie chart, typically you get something called as a wedges, right? Okay, what does pie chart or a circle chart actually tells you? Circular graphical representation of statistical data that is bifurcated. Bifurcated means what? Divided or distributed, right? So it is basically circular graphical representation of what? Any kind of statistical data or numerical data that is bifurcated to indicate numerical breakup. So this will tell you a numerical breakup. It can be in the value of units, it can be also in the value of percentages, so that's fine, right? But if you have to indicate in terms of percentages or the numbers within a specific framework, in that case you can use a pie chart, right? The arc of length of each slice is proportionate to the value it depicts, right? So this is basically the arc. So for example, this one says 28.8%, right? So this slice tells you what proportion of the entire value has been allocated to this specific wedge, right? So that's what the pie chart actually talks about. Widely used by corporate world and mass media. So who typically uses it? Corporate people use that, any company for that matter, a big MNC, or even if it's a media to display any kind of information or pass on some knowledge to the audience. In that case, they can use the pie chart or the circle chart, right? For better depiction, number of wedges in pie chart should be kept in limit. So one should make sure that if one is preparing a pie chart, there's not too much of data in it, right? So it will look very clumsy, right? Very difficult for one to interpret or to understand. So one should make sure that pie chart should be in such a way that it's easier to understand. So small fragments can actually serve the purpose rather than having too much of data in a pie chart, right? So this is what is pie chart all about, right? Let's move on to the next one. And the next method of visual presentation is called as a map. Map, everyone know, right? What all purpose can a map serve? Right? Map basically helps you to display location data, right? It helps you to display location data. Everyone knows that. What does a map do? Okay, what kind of data? It can be basically a postal data, right? Anything to do with postal data can be represented through a map, right? State abbreviations, for example, MP, UP, AP, right? These are all something which can be represented through map. Country names, if you have to indicate the names of a country, that can again be done through a map. Or custom geocoding. Okay, what is custom geocoding? Basically, it allows you to link location names to actual locations on the map, right? For example, there is a name of a location, right? And say there is a map. For example, this is a map. So if the name of the location is say X, so if you got to locate this X over here, then in that case, whatever is the actual location in the map and what is the name, if you are able to have a link between it, or you are able to correlate that, that is called as custom geocoding, right? So basically, what does map do? Map basically helps you to display location data like the postal data, state abbreviations, country names, and custom geocoding, right? If data pertains to geographic information, maps are the best to illustrate the relationship. So anything to do with geographic information, that's very obvious, right? If you have to convey anything which is geographic in nature, that you can primarily do with a map. That's the best tool to have a good visual representation or presentation of the data, if it pertains to what geographic information, right? Okay, there should be correlation between the location and the patterns in the data, right? Please remember that there should be a perfect correlation between two things. One is what? One is the location and the patterns in the data, right? For example, if you are trying to know what are the insurance claims made by a particular state, so that is something which you can indicate through a map. Now, for example, there is an insurance company, so you need to know pan India, they have their insurance schemes that are going on. So if you want to know that what are the number of insurance claims with respect to accidents in India, in that case, that can be done through a map. So it can tell you that in so and so place or so and so state, there has been so much of insurance claim with respect to what? To the road accidents. So that is a correlation between location and the patterns in data. This can be indicated through a map, right? Then you can also know what are the for example, number of automobile accidents by postal code. Now in particular postal code, what has been, how many accidents have actually occurred, that again can be represented through map, right? So this way also map can play a very handy role, right? So quickly we'll summarize what map is, what are the basic features of having a map as a mode of presentation. It basically can help you to display postal data, state abbreviations, country names, and customs geocoding. If the data pertains to specific geographic information, maps are the best way to illustrate the relationship. They also should be able to correlate between the location and the patterns in the data. For example, insurance claim by a state or automobile accidents by postal code, etc. Right? For example, here in the map, if you want to know the GDP of Tamil Nadu in 2020, for say it's 1000 crores, then this map will show you as per the color as to how much data, how much GDP percentage is allocated, or what is the GDP of a particular district in Tamil Nadu. So with this map you would be able to know that. So that's what a map can actually do for you, right? Okay, then we move on to something which is called as a density map, right? First we read map, now we'll do density map. Okay, what can a density map do? They indicate patterns or relative concentrations that may be unclear by overlapping marks on the map, right? Now for example, a map, it becomes way too informative, right? And there are something which is overlapping with one another in the map. In that case, density map can play a very vital role. Okay, so they indicate patterns or relative concentrations that may be unclear by overlapping marks on the map. So any problem to do with map, in that case density map can come out to your rescue, right? Now for example, it allows you to identify areas with a larger or lesser number of data points, right? If you want to, in a particular area, if you want to focus or you want to concentrate exactly on one particular thing, in that case such kind of density maps can help you to identify areas with larger or lesser number of data points, right? They are useful when dealing with large data sets including several data points in a limited geographical region, right? So if you have to use a data, or you want to if you want to decode something in a limited geographical region, in that case density map can come very handy. For example, if you want to see the density map of India on the basis of tsunami occurrence, in that case you would see that the tsunami generally occur in at the coastline of the Indian borders, right? In this case, density map can come out to be very, very handy. So hence you can see this particular place being highlighted, right? So that's what a density map can do, or that's the purpose it serves, right? So what does density map do? They indicate the patterns or the relative concentrations that may be unclear by overlapping marks on the map, allows you to identify areas with larger or lesser number of data points. Useful when dealing with large data sets including several data points in a limited geographical region. This is the key point here. If you make a note of this, and that's been indicated in the point that you mentioned, that should be covering most of the part of the explanation, right? Okay, then we move on to something called as scatter plots. Scatter plots, it's nothing but basically usage of dots, right? So when you use dots to represent values for two different numerical variables, right? So if you use dots to represent what? For values for two different numerical variables, that is called as a scatter plots, right? Okay, this reveals whether one variable is a good predictor of another or whether they tend to vary independently. That means, are they correlated, are they interrelated with one another, or are they independent to each other, right? This is what a scatter plot can do. It displays several unique data points on a single graph. So they can tell you different kinds of data points which are unique in nature, but the beauty of that is this all can be represented in one single graph, right? For example, here you see the height of a student, and here you can see the age of a child, as in age of a child and the height of a child. So you would see a 3-year child his height would be somewhere around 2.5. Now if it is 4, it will go to somewhere around 2.6. So this can be highlighted using these scatter plots. So this is what a scatter plot is all about, right? Let's repeat that once again. It uses dots to represent values of two different numerical variables. Two different numerical variables. Here is one is the age of the child and one is the height of the child. It reveals whether one variable is a good predictor of another, or whether they tend to vary independently. Here you can see they basically are correlated to each other. So as the age of the child increases, automatically his height also more or less increases. So that's what it talks about. It displays several unique data points on a single graph. That's a key point here. Please remember, it displays several unique data points on a single graph. Everything can be done in a single graph. So that's what a scatter plot is all about, right? Next one, we talk about something called as a Gantt chart, right? Gantt, Gantt chart. Okay, it basically represents a project's timeline or activity changes across time, right? So for example, if a project is undertaken, if you want to know how long the project will actually take, that is its timeline, or if there is any change in the activity. For example, if someone is constructing a bridge, you need to know when are they putting in the pillars. Then you need to know when are they building this bridge overhead. Then after that, you need to know when are they building those borders on the edges of the bridge, and then you need to know when are they laying down the roads, right? So this is basically a project and a timeline. So these are the activities that are being undertaken and they change, right? This perfectly can be illustrated through a Gantt chart, right? Okay, depicts tasks that must be completed before others may begin, as well as the allocation of resources. So the key point here to remember is Gantt chart basically helps you to know as to the task that must be completed before others may begin. For example, unless and until you have pillars in place, can you put in this road over here? No, that's not possible. So hence Gantt chart can give you that guidance as to what task should be completed in order to start the next one. So that's what is Gantt chart all about. So depicts tasks that must be completed before others may begin, as well as also the allocation of resources. So you need to know when do you need these things for the pillars to be constructed. Then you need to know if you need to lay down the tar road, what all equipments or the resources that you require. So that can also be decided with the help of a Gantt chart. Right? They are not just restricted to projects. Please remember, they are not specific to projects. Projects is one of the things in which the Gantt chart can actually be used. They can depict data, any data connected to a time series. So anything which to do with a specific timeline, right? In that case, you can use Gantt chart as a very handy tool for presentation, right? We'll repeat that once again. It basically represents a project timeline or activity changes across time, right? So it talks about the timeline or the activity changes over a period of time. It depicts tasks that must be completed before others may begin, as well as the allocation of resources. So two things are very, very handy. First of all, you need to know the tasks that must be completed before the others begin. And the second thing that you need to remember is that it can also help you to know the allocation of the task. allocation of the resources rather, right? Okay. Then you talk about they can depict any data connected to a time series. So if it is a time series that you're talking about, in that case, this can come out to be very, very handy, right? For example, here you can see an example. And this is something to do with the storage technology, information storage technology. You can see there are some 5 tasks undertaken over here. So you need to know which task to do when. So task 1 is done from week 1 to week 3. Now in order to proceed from week 2 to week 3 for task 1 to be completed, the task 2 needs to start in week 2 itself, right? So as we discussed already, that if the task must be completed before others may begin, that's what we are talking over here. Hence that's what a Gantt chart can actually do for you, right? I guess you understand what is Gantt chart now. Okay, now the next one we talk about is something called as a bubble chart, right? Okay, now these bubble charts are nothing but they are again a variation of the scatter plot in which data points is replaced with bubbles, right? The scatter points that we did right now, scatter plot, before Gantt chart we did scatter plot, if that the data points basically are replaced with what? With bubbles, right? Why? Because they enhance scatter plots and maps, right? Scatter plots and maps are very concentrated, right? So if you need to have a bigger picture or a larger view, in that case what you can do is you can basically use a bubble chart, right? Okay, what a bubble chart can do is they can illustrate the link between 3 or more variables, right? So if it is 2, in that case we use something called as scatter plots, right? If you remember, we spoke about 2 variables. So if the plotting has to be done for more than say 2 variables, or rather between 3 or more variables, in that case you use something called as a bubble chart, right? Okay, how do you indicate or how do you represent a bubble chart? By varying the size and color of the bubbles, they display enormous data in an engaging manner, right? So the beauty of the bubble chart is that they can be varying according to the size and the colors, and they can display a huge data in a very engaging manner. Engaging as in you can see and you can pick up things very fast from it. Hence the bubble chart can be used, right? Let's repeat once again, what is a bubble chart? They are basically variation of scatter of the scatter plot in the data points is replaced with bubbles. They enhance scatter plots and maps that illustrate the link between 3 or more variables. Please remember the keyword here is 3 or more. If it is 2, then in that case you can use the scatter directly. If it is more than 3, if it is 3 or more, in that case bubble chart comes out to be more handy, right? By varying the size and color of the bubbles, they display enormous data in an engaging manner, right? For example, if you want to see which type of loan is the most popular one, then you can see agriculture is the most popular one in terms of numbers. So here is the data that's given to you. There's a retail loan also, there's a food loan also, there's a clothing also, there is services also, there is housing also. So here you can see the variables are more than 2, right? So this is 3 or more. In that case, the bubble chart will come out to be very, very handy, right? So please remember, if you have to represent which type of loan is most popular, in that case bubble chart can be one of the most handiest tool that you can use, right? Okay, finally we come to something called as a histogram. Okay, what is histogram? Histogram is basically it illustrates the distribution of data among various groups. Fine. Okay, divide data across different categories. Now what histogram can do it, basically it can divide or distribute the data across different categories. These are sometimes called as bins. Please remember, they can be 1 mark question. It may ask you divide data across different categories. What are they called as? They are basically called as bins with respect to histogram, and it provide a bar proportionate to the number of entries inside each category, right? They can provide a bar. So this is how you represent a histogram, proportionate to the number of entries. So say there are how many? There are 3 plus 3, 6 entries. If this is represented by a bar, in that case that becomes a histogram. This type is used to show data such as number of items, right? So if you have an items and you need to know the categorization across various data, in that case this data can be divided into different categories, and that's what a histogram will actually represent. For example, this tells you the number of students and this tells you the scores that they have, right? So this will tell you 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, that indicates the number of students, and this is the scores that they have scored. So hence this can be represented through a histogram, right? Okay, let's revise that once again. It basically illustrates the distribution of data among various groups, right? It divide data across different categories, right? So here you can see different categories is there, sometimes called as bins. These categories are called as bins. They provide an proportionate to the number of entries inside each category. This type is used to show data such as the number of items, right? With this we finished histogram also, right? Now let's come to the next part of the chapter, which talks about the tables. Okay. Tables are visually not as appealing as the modes that we have discussed right now, but still tables can be handy if you merge tables with the tools that we have used above. Maybe you would be able to convey your information in a more effective manner. Fine. Okay. Now, known as cross tabs or matrices, these tables can also be called as cross tabs or matrices, right? Please remember that. They are not intrinsically visual, right? It's not visually very appealing as compared to the other visualization techniques that we spoke about. Visual features may be added to tables to make them more effective and simpler to collate the data. Collate means to accumulate the data or bring the data together, right? So tables in itself is not very appealing, but yeah, if you can correlate or you can link tables with other forms of data that's used above, in that case tables can be one of the most effective and simpler tools to collate data, right? Okay, now this is crucial for analysts and knowledge workers to learn how to make information easier for their audience to comprehend. Now this is basically very crucial for whom? For analysts, right? The people who are analyzing things, and the knowledge workers, to learn how to make information easier for their audience to comprehend. So if someone is representing data through a table, in that case it's their job, especially the analysts and the knowledge workers, to make the information easier. By how? For what? For making the data to be comprehended by the audience in an easier way, right? Okay, how do you use a table? Table arranges data along one axis. Okay, fine. How do you represent? Here are two axes. This is called as an x-axis and this is called as an y-axis. So if you have to represent the data in a table, that can be done through along one axis, that is x-axis and y-axis. Now x-axis is the rows. We all know that this is the rows. So this is the x-axis we talk about, while the y-axis is the column, right? Hence this is the column that we talk about. It is customary to display categories along the x-axis, right? So basically if you talk about the x-axis, they talk about the categories, whereas the y-axis depicts values within each matrix with clearly labeled columns indicating their significance. So this will tell you what is the value within each matrix, each metric. Clearly labeled columns, they should be clearly labeled and they should indicate what is their significance. So this is what is x and y axis all about. Okay, now let's understand what's the problem with the table. The problem with table is that they scale poorly. Okay, why do they scale poorly? For example, if it's more than say 10 to 15 rows and 5 columns, then it makes the table difficult to read. Yes or no? If too much of data is there, for example, you have 10 rows, right? You have 10 rows and you say you have 5 columns, then interpreting data can be very difficult. So that's the biggest limitation of having a table, right? Now what it can do, it can make the table difficult to read, it can make it difficult, it can make the audience difficult for them to comprehend and to get insights or the required information from it, right? Okay, table engages brain's linguistic systems. Please note this. This is very important point. Table, what it does is it engages the brain's linguistic system, right? So as far as the table goes, it engages what? It engages brain's linguistic system, linguistic language, right? Whereas data visualization excites the brain visual system, right? So this basically engages the brain's linguistic system, whereas data visualization excites the brain's visual system, right? So this is basically engaging brain's linguistic system, whereas the data visualization excites the brain's visual system. So that's the core difference between a table and data visualization, right? Okay, adding visual features will aid in understanding the tables in a better way. So if you have good visual features, in that case tables can become very handy. Gradients of color and size aid in identifying trends and outliers, right? So if you have different colors, different shapes, different sizes, in that case you would be able to identify the trends and outliers easily. Now if you also use icons, they will help you to recognize a shift in the proportions. So icons can also be one of the ways to make the table more appealing. Different markings will highlight relationships more effectively than raw data in a table. So if you have simply numbers in a table, then that doesn't make any sense. Now if you have, for example, a good color, a good size, or if you try to show a variation in the table with different icons, in that case also those markings can help you to make a table more presentable, right? That's what this talks about. Okay. Now these tables and the cross tabs, something which we read earlier, are ideal for doing comparative analysis between data points, right? So tables and cross tabs can actually help you to do comparative analysis. They can be simple to construct and shall convey the essential message, right? So if you bring tables and cross tabs together, in that case they can help you to do comparative analysis, and also they are simple to construct and they should be able to convey the essential message. Before incorporating cross tab into data visualization, one shall make sure that it serves the purpose or whatever the aim of the project is, right? For example, this is how a cross table and as in what a cross tab and a table actually looks like. So there's a data given over here in columns, and in rows it tells you what is your favorite baseball team. So just for an illustrative purpose, I have just put in a picture over here. So that's what a table is all about, right? Okay, now let's move on to the next part. The last part of this chapter talks about report designing using data visualization. So how you can report a design using a data visualization. Whether for conveying ideas or seeking help, information must leave an impression. Yes or no? If you want to convey something, or if you want to teach something someone, in that case, information that you are trying to pass on should leave an impression. The people should have an impact of that information or the idea on you, right, or on the audience, right? Report shall be presented in a way that it is more attractive, both attractive and simple to comprehend. Yes, the report that you are trying to give, it should be presented in a way that it is both attractive, right? So people, it's eye catchy, and also they are able to understand whatever the data wants to convey, right? Okay, report are all the more accurate if the layout includes numbers, right? So if you are trying to give a data and if there are numbers in it, then it becomes a it becomes more appealing, or visually more appealing rather. Okay. Now how do you use data visualization in report design? Okay, so if you're talking about a report design, how can you use a data visualization, right? I hope you understand what we are trying to study in this. We are trying to study as to how data visualization can be handy as far as a report designing is concerned. Okay, now what are the strategic steps to include data visualization in report design? Okay, first of all, you should find a story in the data. Fine. Okay, if storytelling is data driven, then it is highly effective, right? Any data if you want to give, and if you are able to incorporate numbers into it, right, then it can be very effective. As in, you can incorporate storytelling into it, then it can be very effective, right? Story that a reader can correlate to or becomes an effective report. In order to make story appealing, one must arrange the data, right? So first thing that you should do is you should give a data in a form of a storytelling. If you are able to do it in a storytelling way, then the reader can correlate to it, and that can become an effective report, right? Okay, if you want to make the storytelling more appealing, what you should do, first of all, you should arrange the data. Okay, secondly, identify any missing numbers, right? Please make sure there's no missing numbers. If there are any, then you should identify it. And thirdly, you check for the outliers, right? So first thing is you arrange your data, then you identify the missing numbers, and finally you check for the outliers. Finally, one shall view the data and examine the link between the different factors, right? So that is all about finding a story in the data, right? Let's repeat that once again. Storytelling is basically data driven, then it becomes all the more effective. Story that a reader can correlate to becomes an effective report. Obviously, if something can be remembered in a form of a story, it's very likely that they will remember it for a longer period of time, right? So hence, if you are able to do data visualization in a report design, in that case that becomes very handy by telling a story, by doing a storytelling, right? How can you make story more appealing? First of all, by arranging a data. Secondly, by identifying any missing numbers and checking for the outliers. Finally, one should view the data and examine the link between the different factors, right? Okay, then we come to the next one. Then you create a narrative. Okay, you create a story, a line behind it as to on what basis the story is being told. Strong data storytelling shall have an engaging narrative that updates the audience with the facts and aids in their comprehension. So basically, you have to create a narrative. What a good engaging narrative can do, it can update the audience, or it can appraise the audience with the facts and aids in their comprehension. That would be able, they should be able to understand it more easily. Explanation of the same is equally important. Please make sure it's not just about conveying the message. You should be able to explain in such a way that they are able to grasp, or they are able to understand it or comprehend it very easily, right? Okay, to compose an excellent story, one must, what he should do, have a catchy title and subheadings. For example, if you want to see a good engaging YouTube video which is for an entertainment purpose, in that case you can have a catchy title and subheadings, right? Something called as a clickbait, right? So if you have something called as a clickbait, in that case that becomes very successful. So that's the initial part of it. So if you have to compose an excellent story, first of all you should have a catchy title and subheadings. You should incorporate context into data, right? So any context that is there, that should be brought into the data. Create a consistent and logical flow, right? It should not be haphazard, right? So whatever is the flow of the story, that should be maintained, right? For example, even if you watch a movie, if the movie doesn't have a story or there is no consistency, I guess you would feel very bored by looking at it. So hence, if you want to create a narrative, obviously you have to make sure that there is a consistency and a logical flow in that. Finally, you have to highlight significant discoveries and insights from the data, right? Okay, first of all you should have what? A catchy title and subheadings, right? Then you have to incorporate context into data. So whatever topic you want to emphasize on, that should be brought into data. You should be able to create a consistent and logical flow, and finally you should highlight significant discoveries and insights from the data, right? So first thing we did was to find the story in the data. Second one is create a narrative. Thirdly, we need to choose the most suitable data visualization. What is the method, or what is the methodology rather we can use to make data visualization more suitable, right? So present the facts in most comprehensible chart possible, right? Whatever data you want to convey, select the most appropriate chart, right? Whatever charts that we have done, like it can be a map, a histogram, it can be a density map, or it can be a Gantt chart. You need to make sure that you select the appropriate chart, right? So for conveying your message, that's the first and foremost criteria. Now apply basic design principles and use of features such as form, in what form you want to present it, what size, what color, what labeling, etc. can have a substantial impact in order to comprehend the data, right? So you got to make sure that the basic design principles are being applied, and the features such as form, size, color, labeling, etc. can be used, which are the best ones that you can use to have a significant impact on the in order to comprehend the data. Example, having optimal number of slices in a pie chart can make it more appealing and understandable. We already discussed that. In pie chart, if you have too much of slices or wedges, in that case it may not be that appealing. So you need to know how many number of slices or a wedges you need to have in a pie chart, so that it is more appealing and understandable. So you should choose the most suitable data visualization techniques, right, and make it as appealing as possible. Okay, then you follow the visual language. Okay, report may be for internal or external consumption. Yes or no? Internal means what? Staff or the employees, right? External means shareholders, or if you have any creditors, or if you have any vendors, if they want to understand that, in that case it can be consumption of both the internal or the external. In spite this, one shall prepare content as per company style guide, right? Whosoever you want to convey it to, please make sure you prepare the content as per the company style guide. There's a certain principles or standards that are being laid down by the company, so one should make sure that the presentation that is being made, that is as per the company style guide. Now data visualization principles shall be kept in mind for uniformity and comprehension. Now principles shall be kept in mind. If a company is preparing a particular presentation, then they should maintain a uniformity, so that basically it's more easier for people to relate to it, and also it's easier for them to comprehend. So that's what the visual language, follow the visual language point talks about. Finally, you publicize the report. Okay, certain reports shall not be for public consumption, right? That is very internal in nature, but still, however, data contained may be of interest to individuals, especially the stakeholders or the media outside the business. In that case, the report shall be publicized. If it pertains, if it is not that relevant for you to share with the public, but still it is important from a company's point of view, in that case the report should be publicized, right? Let's repeat the points once again. How to use data visualization in report designing, right? First of all, you should be able to find a story in the data, right? How you can basically arrange the data, identifying the missing numbers and check for the outliers, right? Then you create a narrative. Narrative is nothing but you create a base or a crisp story for one to understand the presentation in a better way. Now how you can do that? You can do it by having a catchy title and subheadings, incorporate context into data, create a consistent and logical flow, and finally highlight significant discoveries and insights from the data, right? Then you choose the most suitable data visualization technique, right? For example, the visualization techniques that you are using, that should have features, basic design principles it should have, and they should have features such as form, size, color, labeling, etc. For example, if it's a pie chart, then you got to make sure that they have the optimal number of wedges or slices, and so that it can be more appealing and understandable, you should follow the visual language. Now it can be for both internal or the external consumption. In spite of this, one should make sure that it is as per company style guide. So visual language also talks about the style guide. How this is important, because data visualization principles should always be kept in mind for the uniformity and the people to comprehend it easily. Finally, you publicize the report. Certain reports are not meant for the public consumption. However, data contained may be of interest to individuals, especially the stakeholders or the media outside the business. So that's how you publicize the report, right? With this, we finished 10.4. With this, we finished 10.4, but we are left with one more topic, that is 10.5. In next class, we would be finishing with 10.5 and all the MCQs in the back of the book. I guess that with this we'll be finishing chapter 10 also. Then we'll be left with only chapter 11. I'll try and finish it as soon as possible, so that you have adequate time for you to revise and do when you're in an exam, right? If you like this content, please make sure that you press the like button, and please do subscribe to my channel, right? Thank you for joining, and very happy learning. Thank you. Bye bye.